Hello chess friends and welcome to Azadov's chess channel and welcome to my Basics in Chess series. So in this series we follow opening principles, middle game strategies and the endgame strategies. Today we continue with some middle game strategies, although the thing that I wanted to show you today can happen also in an early stage of the game, so it means in the opening and in the middle game. Today we'll talk about the so-called annoying bishop situation. So this annoying bishop situation is basically sort of a term you won't probably find it in some textbooks or on some other sites, because this term I use myself when I face these types of positions. So this is sort of a click and a trigger for me. When that happens, I know what to do. This annoying bishop is a situation that in which your opponent is trying to play very actively with one of his bishops and is trying to create some weaknesses in your position. So it means he'll probably give up the bishop for a knight in order to create double pawn situations and similar ideas, or he tries to stop you from a very active development. So these are the main strategical ideas of your opponent, and in this video I'm trying to show you good motifs and good tactical elements how to battle against this annoying bishop situation. So all the games that I use now in this video will be in the description below, so you can check it out. You can analyze the whole games for yourself. The first instructive game that I wanted to show you, it is a game played by Hans-Joachim Hohlfelder against Michael Konopka. It was in the English opening, so it doesn't matter which opening we choose. This annoying bishop can happen to you very often, and I think this is very important, although it's not the most attractive videos of my YouTube chess channel. But pay good attention, because I think these things happen to you all the time, and basically you had probably troubles while facing this annoying bishop situation. And the idea how I came to this the idea to make this video is one game that I lost against Grandmaster Bogdan Lalic. He placed me also this annoying bishop situation. So then I went home, analyzed the game, and then I said to myself, this is not going to happen to me again. So basically I'm learning also in my through my YouTube chess channel. So, and again, I wanted to thank you for following my videos, and today we continue with our nice basics in chess strategy. So let's see the game. In the game, d5 was played. You see what's all about this annoying bishop. We have the exchange variation. I'm not going to explain now all these moves through this opening preparation. I just wanted to show you what happens if your opponent plays this annoying bishop. So this is now the critical moment. We play the move bishop to d3. It's the best move for white. Because the bishop is on a very active square. We want to play something like queen on c2, threatening even to take this h7 pawn, but using the spin here by the bishop on the knight. And now sometimes your opponent can play the move bishop to g4. This is now a very annoying pin, because there is now no idea behind this move. First of all, if you move the bishop to e2, you have already played with your piece twice, which you should avoid basically in opening. So that's why bishop to e2 is not such a powerful move. If you try h3, then your opponent can try something like bishop to g5. If you try h4, then your opponent can try bishop to g6. You see, although you have again blocked out this bishop, but in the next move your opponent can trade off these bishops, and you're continuing the game with several weaknesses around the king. So this wouldn't be also a good position. I've explained in my previous videos some ideas how to unpin yourself. I'll show you also the link of that video in the end of this video. So now, as I said, we would love to play freely with our queen, like something like queen to c2, but the threat is, of course, bishop takes f3, and here after g takes f3 we have a weakened pawn structure in the continuation of the game. But there is now something to worry about for black. This is still not a weakened pawn structure. The weakened pawn structure would be if we wouldn't have this e3 pawn. So in the continuation of the game, white continued anyway queen to c2, because here after h6 we had bishop to h4, knight from b to d7, and now bishop to g3. If you here after queen to e7, if bishop takes an f3, then here we can play simply g takes f3, and after something like bishop to g3 we have h takes g3, and still this is, I think, a very firm pawn structure. So we haven't weakened the pawn structure, so this was the main idea of black here. And now in the continuation we could try something like e4 e5, f4, f5, even f6 if the position allows it. So this would be a perfect battery here on light square. So basically we get out of this bishop to g4 idea. Here in the continuation of the game, after bishop to g3 was played by white, we see queen to e7 and now castling. Here rook to e8, here knight to d2, and we got out of this mess. We are now continuing the game. I think it's a very good continuation because we have now the possibility to launch our minority attack a3 b4, maybe play something like knight to b3, and then maybe play very powerful outpost on c5. So you see, we got out of this mess because taking here this knight on f3 is not so dangerous, I think, because here after g takes f3 and queen to e7, we can even castle kingside here. So it's not a problem because we can play something like king to g2, bishop to f5, secure our like squares, and continue again the game with the bishop pair. Although we have a double pawn situation, but now the move e4 is a serious threat that your opponent has to face, and maybe with some e5 pawn breakers, this would be, I think, a favorable continuation for white. So this is now the main idea: king to g2, bishop to f5, e4. So if your opponent takes, as I said, we have h takes g3, and we can play something like after rook to e8, we can play king to g2. This is now again a firm pawn structure, and again we should use maybe some knight on a4, knight on c5 outpost if the position allows it, or even this e4 pawn breakthrough, get this very powerful pawn storm in the center, and this would be, I think, again a good continuation for white. So you see this bishop to g4 idea by your opponent can be sometimes very annoying, because then you get scared to try something like h3, g4, because you're really bothered by this bishop. But this is not a problem now we can really continue into a favorable middle game with this leaving situation, trying your opponent forcing your opponent to take out this knight on f3 and going into favorable middle game with the bishop pair. So let's see now another example. I just wanted to show you one game. It was played by Miroslav Tosic here with the white pieces. This game will be also in the description below. Again, after we have sort of a queen's gambit accepted line in which black took d takes c4, and now black is trying again bishop to g4 with the pinning idea, because first of all we have to take the pawn on c4, and now the problem is, if we want to secure our position, we would have to play something like bishop to e2, because we have a very dangerous pin again, and now we are threatened again by this active bishop. So this is really an annoying bishop. Again, I'm pointing you out, if you try something like after here e6 like black did, if you try something like h3 again, bishop to h5, if you try g4, this is simply not good, because bishop to g6, and you see we have now a weak square in our own position. We can use it for the bishop. Here we can play bishop to e4 or even knight to e4. So this is now, I think, a favorable game for black. So that's why you should always try to avoid this expanse on the king side with this move h3 g4. So in the game, white tried queen to b3, getting out of the pin, risking really an annoying situation, because now bishop takes f3 was played, again g takes f3, and we have now again a little bit weakened pawn structure, but we have the advantage that we are continuing the game with the bishop pair, and here black tried c5. What you shouldn't allow is to play something like knight to c3, then your opponent can take c takes d4, and after e takes d4, I hope you realize this is not a good pawn structure anymore. This is a weakened pawn structure, and it's not so good because we're continuing the game, although your opponent can take here queen to d, but now the queen is a little bit endangered. We can use some tempos, but this is not something that I recommend you. Here I recommend you to simply take d takes c5 after bishop to c5. You see, although we have now a weakened pawn structure, but with this like square bishop, we still can battle with something like bishop to e2, f4, bishop to f3, getting use of this powerful diagonal. So this would be the main strategical idea here, and also we have maybe in some occasions some tactical possibilities to launch a sacrifice bishop to e6 followed with queen to e6. I'm just saying you have to calculate, of course, this tactics, but now at least we are continuing the game with some kind of a good pawn structure here in the front of the king. So let's see the continuation. Bishop to d2, very important, because this bishop is a little bit blocked out. We are not playing first the knight to d2, we're playing first the bishop, and now we're trying to place the bishop on c3. So knight from b to d7, bishop to c3, and now after knight to d2, I'm just going to continue. I'm not showing you all of the possible moves now in this opening. Here a4, very important, blocking out the potential b5 move. In the game, bishop to b6 was played, and simply continuing a5, bishop to c7, and now queen to b5. You see the king is still secured because we have the possibility even to play with our king to e2. There are still 3 pawns in front of the king, so again, I'm not going to show you the whole game. I hope you realize that we got out of this mess, out of this positional mess that black has prepared here with the spinning idea. Now with the queen on b3 move, we have secured at least some kind of good pawn structure, and we're continuing the game with the bishop here. Now we have even some tactical possibilities with rook to g1, attacking here the g7 weakness. We have also possibilities to play bishop to d3, maybe attacking the h7. So many tactical possibilities here for white, and here black is a little bit passive with this setup of this knight. So as said, don't be scared so much and don't chase the bishop, which is the main rule I think here. Don't do this h3 g4 continuation because you're weakening the pawn structure further. Here just leave it like that. If your opponent has to take it, at least don't weaken the pawn structure anymore. Queen to b3 was, I think, a very nice move here by Tosic, also attacking this pawn on b7. If your opponent after queen to b3 play something like b6, then of course we can play something like knight to e5. You see, we get out of this positional mess here, and now there are also some likes for problems here in front of black's king. So again, this would be, I think, a good continuation here for white. So let's see now a game played by Anatoly Karpov. I'm just going to move the first move fast here. After g6, we have the classical system of the perch defense. Here bishop to g7, bishop to e2, and now after castling again, black is trying this bishop to g4 idea, creating sort of a positional pin, although the pin is not simply on the queen, but there is a problem after h3, bishop to e3, and now knight from b to d7. After h3 we have bishop takes f3, bishop takes f3. Black is trying to close the position with the move e5. So black is trying to create a certain staticity in the center, not allowing this position to get opened. And the main mistake which you could make, I think, is to play something like d takes e5. Then your opponent, I think, can close the position, and we are continuing the game with the bad bishop situation, which is not good. I think we should at least try to secure a new dynamic position. So that's why Anatoly Karpov, one of the best positional players after e5, played the move g3. Now we can use here this advanced pawns with the moves like bishop to g2 and f4. As said, we are not allowing our opponent to create static positions, and we are not allowing to create too much weakened position of pawns in our own position. So here in the game, c6 was played. You see bishop to g2 with the preparation to f4, and now the pawns are rolling. And when the pawns are rolling, the bishops love when the pawns are rolling. The bishops love active games in the game. Queen to a5 was played, and now queen to d2, simply developing move. Rook to e8, and now rook to d1. We have b5, and now a3. Again, I'm not showing you the whole game. The idea now, the main idea, is to place maybe something like f4, getting after g takes f4, are really a nice central pawn storm here. And with this bishop pair, I think again it's a favorable continuation here for white. So as said, the main idea is in this position was about this annoying bishop. To take first out the knight after bishop takes f3, bishop takes, and now e5, to have a closed position. So you can see it sometimes that your opponent would try to close the center. Don't allow him to do that. Keep the game dynamic with the bishop pair on the board, and now I think you can play this continuation very good. Okay, let's see now another example. Here we have a position in which your opponent in the perch defense can try bishop to f5. This is again a very annoying position of the bishop, because this bishop to f5 is not allowing us to play our common move e4, attacking the bishop. So now my recommendation is simply to attack the pieces that are covering the e4 squares. Again, not to chase the bishop immediately with knight to h4, because after knight to h4 you can play something like bishop to g4. Here h3, again bishop to h5. Again, we can try something like g5. g4, bishop to g6, and again this is a little bit weakened, although you can take after h takes g6. We could have maybe now a bishop, but again we have two advanced pawns. The more important idea, I think, here in these types of positions is to first bishop to g5, trying our pawn breakthrough here with bishop takes f6 and then e4, grabbing the central control with our pawns. In the game, it was a game played by Tabata Bey against Alex Firouzja. Here, black tried knight from b to d7. Now, whenever you see that this bishop is locked by the knight, so the bishop cannot retreat anymore on this natural square on d7, now it's time to chase the bishop. Now we can try knight to h4. Here, black tried e4. We can take simply. Bishop takes f6. Here, knight takes f6, but now knight takes, and at least we have some tempos. Here, after knight to f6, we have also the possibility to play queen to b5. Or one of the ideas can be, now after the position has changed, after your opponent has played knight from b to d7, if you try something like knight to g6, we can again, I think, now finally take. Here after h takes g6, now we can secure again this pawn central control. Again, I'm pointing out, if your opponent tries to play the move e5, the g3 move, I think here is the best, simply leaving the dynamics in the game, because again, we are loving the bishops to have some dynamics. If the position gets too closed and the center is closed, this is favorable for the knight. So you see, we can get out of this mess by simply playing actively with our own pieces. Now after knight to h4, if your opponent tries now maybe here bishop to g4, now I think a good continuation would be h3, bishop to g4, and now to attack this bishop, because now we have even some possibilities after knight to g6. Now after bishop to g2, now we would love to play something like e4, and even f4 is possible because the bishop is very active. We can also take out this knight which is on f6 and have this pawn central control. So let's see now another example. Here it's a game played by Vassily Ivanchuk. Here d4, d5. We have the Slav defense. After a4, bishop to g4. Again, this idea of blacks, if you play something like, I don't know, e3, then he could play also some e5 ideas immediately, because the pin is very, very annoying. You cannot take with the knight. If you take here with the pawn, then the queens are off. Then after that we can take something, take out the knight, and again doubling pawns here. In the game, knight to e5 was played by Vassily Ivanchuk, but again after bishop to h5, this is still an annoying bishop, I think, because it's aiming here against the queen and the pawn is bothering us. So we would love to play something like e4 here. In the game, Vassily simply continued with knight to c3. We have knight to d7, and now knight to c4. We have knight to f6, and now f3. This is also a setup how you can battle against this annoying pawn situation. In the game, Ivanchuk's opponent tried e6 and now e4. Now after bishop to b4, we have bishop to e2, simply developing move. Knight to b6, we have knight to e5 again. We have c5. One of the main ideas in these types of variations is to crack the position in the center, and here Vassily simply took d takes c5. We have bishop takes e5. If we trade off the queens, then we have knight to d1. Or bishop to d1. If your opponent takes, then we can play even something like king on e2 and battle against this bishop with bishop to e3. Still, this bishop is out of game. This is the main problem of blacks. The bishop is locked there. We can now even try g4. In the game, after d takes c5, bishop takes c5, queen takes, rook takes, and now a very important move, a5, kicking away the knight. Knight to d7 was played, but now knight to d3, kicking away the bishop after bishop to d6. I think again white has a good game. You can try even something like bishop to e3, attacking this weakness here, this a7 pawn. But the more important thing is that we have secured a good position after this annoying bishop move with the move f3, and in some occasions we could maybe continue with the move g4, h4, and h5. Okay, I hope you realize these ideas. The most important things are not to weaken too much your pawn structure, trying to get out actively out of this annoying bishop situations. Don't create this too many weaknesses, and also don't chase the bishop if it's not necessary. You see how much you can really weaken the pawn structure if you chase this like square bishop, like in these positions that I showed you before. And as I said, this is, I think, really important, because you face these types of variations many times, and we'll try probably some unexperienced player will try h3 g4, but then facing a stronger opponent, he'll simply crush you using the weaknesses, because you have expand pawns, but you have also left some weaknesses behind, and that's why you should avoid it. If it's necessary, do it, but at least consider the option to do something else, because you saw how this top grandmasters got out of this positional mess with some other ideas in the continuation of the game. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video. Meanwhile, you can watch my other video from this unpinning ideas. Here's the link to that video, and you can also watch my other basics in chess series videos, in which I show you opening principles, middle game strategies, and the endgame strategies. And you can also subscribe to my channel if you like this content. Thanks you for watching, guys, and chess is the best, of course.